Hey Philip, how are you?
Hey Kent, I'm great. How are you?
Good. Hey, I wanted to ask, did you ever have a motto, mantra, something that you held on to as you guided the business?
Matter of fact, I did. And as you might imagine, there's a story behind it. So I'll kind of give you a little background here.
Okay.
I am a huge Ronald Reagan fan. And
All right.
I was in high school when Reagan became president, kind of telling my age here, but when Reagan was elected president. So I think all of us kind of, when we were growing up, coming of age, whatever was popular at that time, we kind of glommed onto it. And so I actually did my senior paper on Reaganomics. And so I
Okay.
was like, I was big time Reagan. Yes, I loved his optimism. Of course, you will remember you were alive then. We were kind of
Yeah.
coming out of recession and double digit inflation, double digit
Right.
interest rates. Which as a high school senior, I should have really paid attention to that. But I that's what I did my paper on. So I really
Okay.
I became well versed in that, and so I loved the optimism of Reagan
Okay.
that marked his entire presidency is what I thought. It was an optimism about America and what we can do. And so I determined one thing that I've done over the years, I have tried to visit as many of the presidential libraries throughout the country as I can. I've
Right.
visited a number of them. It's great. It's a great historical record of what happened during that era and the achievements of that president, and just a testament of what happened in that particular time. So I find it fascinating. So I was determined at some point in time I was going to visit the Reagan Presidential Library and Museum in Simi Valley, California, and so I
Okay.
had the opportunity to do that many years ago, and it was incredible. But one thing, when I went to the gift shop after the museum, they had all the little things that you could buy, but there was one little thing that I bought, and it was a replica of a sign that Reagan had on his desk in the Oval Office. And
Okay.
it simply just a little brown sign, and it said, "It can be done." And that
Oh,
sat on the Oval Office, on his desk in the Oval Office. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that that personified the Reagan presidency. That personified the 80s and the whole decade of the 80s. It
right.
can be done. That's when I started to college. That's when I learned to program computers. That's when I chose my career. I mean, it all happened, and I'm like, that that's the motto that I'm going to
Oh,
run my business on. It can
can be
be
done.
done. Now, I wish I could tell you that I kind of followed that to a T from the beginning, but maybe surprised at this, but in the early days, I doubted myself. I was very conservative
Oh,
in what I felt like that I could bite off and chew, even though I'm a very positive person. I didn't want to stick my neck out too far and promise something that I couldn't deliver and then look really dumb in the process. And so I would be very conservative. Early on, the early stuff I was asked to do, it was easy peasy. No problem. I can do that. But then we started getting into things that I was not as familiar with. And of course, technology is evolving. So there's new things coming on. And so I was so reluctant to kind of stick my neck out. Luckily for me, I had a mentor, and I've mentioned him several times on this
yep.
podcast. And maybe one day I will persuade him to come on this podcast with me. I'd love that.
That would be great.
And he was an attorney, and he was one of the one he was the attorney, the first attorney that hired me when I started my business.
Oh,
And for some reason, he must have liked me, don't know why, but he really became a mentor for me, and not only introduced me to a ton of people in Nashville in the legal community, really gave me a good exposure in the community, but he also was very encouraging in like telling me that I could do just about anything. So he would introduce me to, attorney down the street at this firm. And they say, yeah, we've got such and such. Can you do that? And before I could say anything, my friend Bill would go, yeah, Philip can do that. Oh, shoot. Yeah, he can do that. And I'm thinking in my mind, well, I might can, but I wouldn't be so cocky about it. But he was like, yeah, Philip can do that.
Yeah. Stop, stop.
And so, he just kind of threw me out there, but he kind of knew, I guess, watching my work
Yeah.
at his firm is that if I didn't know how to do something, I'd figure it out. And he kind of had that confidence, whereas I didn't have that confidence about myself.
It's normal, I think.
And
That's normal.
yeah, I guess. But it kind of came to a head one time. There was a local metro court that he had some affiliation with the person that ran that court, the judge of that court, and they had a software application, a commercial software application that they had purchased that had all the docket information for every case that was coming up in the chancery court. All the litigants, all the papers and everything. So it's a big time system. They paid a lot of money for it. Well, they were struggling with it because every time they would go to search a case, you put in the case number and you would go to run a search. It would take minutes for it to pull it up, which software shouldn't do that. It should be milliseconds.
Right.
And so this judge that was over this particular court was complaining to my friend about this software. And so without my knowledge, he told this judge, he goes, "Oh, I got a guy, he can fix that." And so this judge gives me a call and says, Bill tells me that you can fix my software. And I'm like, oh, well, what? Tell me what. And then I found out it was commercial software. And, they had a service contract with the manufacturer of the software. And they had been working on it and had not been able to isolate what the problem was. And my friend just threw me to the lion's den and said, yeah, Philip can do that.
Right.
So I'm like, I can't work on that. That's commercial software. I mean, you would have to get the source code. Oh, we have the source code. They gave us the source code. And so I finally just to appease everybody said, okay, I'll take a look at it. So I go down there. They give me access on the computer, and I don't have it. I'm a software programmer, so I know how to program software. I'm a database guy. I know all that. So I can look at stuff and interpret it, but I don't know anything about this program. I will tell you, Kent, I was there maybe a half hour and I found it.
Oh, you're kidding.
Now, it won't mean anything to anybody that's not a math nerd, but this software was generating something called a Cartesian product. And I won't even go into detail, but it's a telltale error in database applications that if that join or a join of two different tables comes together, if it's not done correctly, it generates something called a Cartesian product, where it is trying to find a match to what you've looked for. It is pairing every row in each table one by one. Takes forever. And I saw it. I'm like, surely not. I mean, that's a rookie mistake. That's a really rookie mistake. This is commercial software. And so I'm like, I think they left a join condition off of this. That's a Cartesian product. Let me just try it. How do you connect these two tables? And I found the two keys or whatever. I put it in there. Boom. In a half hour, I fixed that software that had been bugging them for months.
Wow.
So it taught me a lesson is like, you know what? Sometimes you just got to dive in because it can be done. Now, I didn't know how long it was going to take me, but if they were willing to give me the time and they were willing me to pay the money for my time,
right,
I could do it. Now, as it turned out, I billed them a really small amount. And so it became a legend that this judge would tell other people, oh, this guy, man, he's cheap too. I mean, we thought it was going to cost us thousands of dollars, and it was nothing. That's not exactly the reputation I wanted, but I did like the
Right.
idea that this guy can fix it.
Yeah.
And so
Yes.
that taught me a lesson early on, is that even though the problem may seem daunting, sometimes you just got to dive in it and try it. You don't know
Right.
what you're going to find, and that's what I did, and I was able to solve the problem fairly quickly. And so I got that sign that says it can be done, and I'm like, that encapsulates what I want my business to be about.
Yes.
Because oftentimes we were particularly in IT, you're presented with novel problems that maybe haven't occurred before. There's not Can't get a manual and look it up. I over the years I hired many different types of techs, and I later on people would come to me with a lot of certifications where they would go Microsoft certification
Right.
or Cisco or whatever it is,
Right.
and they would do hours of training and testing and so forth. Very, very educated. And sometimes those people couldn't figure out just basic problems because they weren't spelled out in detail in
Mm.
the manual.
Yep.
But other times I would hire techs that really had very little formal training, but they had just worked and were good
Mm.
at problem solving. I would take those any day over the people that had long. I'm not saying certifications are bad, but you need
Right.
to be able to figure things out, solve problems, even if it's not spelled out in black and white in a manual somewhere. And that's what
Right.
I wanted to instill into my guys, and to my guys and gals that work for me. And so I've got that sign and I put it on my desk. And if anyone ever came into my office and they said, "Hey, we're working with law firm X and we got this huge, nasty problem, and here's why we can't fix it. Because if I do
Mm.
this," and I would stop them, I would say, "No, mm-mm. I don't want to hear why you can't. Tell me the problem and then give me possible solutions, and we'll evaluate which one we want to try." But I had some people that would always want to come in and tell me why we can't do it. Because if we do
Sure.
this, then this, and I can't do that. Mm-mm.
Right.
That was a non-starter with me. I don't want to hear it. And I would point to the sign. I would. I'm sure they
I,
hated that
yeah.
because I
Yeah.
hated it when I was younger. But
Sure.
and this is what I told my guys. I'm a math and computer science double major, so sometimes my examples are weird. But I would say, guys, there are a very, very few what we know as intractable problems. That means that problems that are so complex that it would take long, long, long time, more time than
Right.
we have to solve them. There's very few of
Right.
those. They're documented. So I doubt we're going to encounter anything in this 26 years of my business that is an intractable problem. So the problem is we need time and we need money. And I will tell you, if the client is willing to give us time and money, there's nothing we can't do. And I meant that.
Mm. Okay. All
Now, we're
right.
not going to promise we can do something in 30 minutes if we don't know that. But if they've got a hairy enough of a problem and they're willing to pay us, I'm going to dive in and I'm going to fix that problem.
Right. Right. Of course you are.
And so that is that was our motto. It can be done. It can be done. And I preached it over and over and over again. And I'm sure the guys were sick and tired of hearing about it, but they knew better than to come into my office and tell me why they couldn't do something. So over time, I became more confident, obviously, because now I'm leading the company. And so I'm trying to instill that confidence in these and the people that I employed, because I remember my own reluctance when I was younger about
Right.
jumping in and something in the deep end of the pool, and I'm not sure if I can swim. And so sometimes I had to push them. Well, where it really paid off was probably about 12 or 13 years into my um, business, maybe 14. Um, we were doing bigger and bigger projects. I think I've mentioned on a previous episode how I had developed a computer forensics
Yes.
revenue stream where we were doing forensic captures of data for litigation cases. We were getting that data, and then we would turn that data over to the law firm that was trying the case or heading up the case, and then they would examine the data and make decisions based on what the documents and emails and what have you. So as we went along, the cases started getting bigger and bigger, and that data set was getting larger and larger. Some firms had infrastructure in house to be able to review that data. You needed special software to sort of load this data, like a database that you could go in and review it and mark it up and that sort of thing. Some firms did not, and so there was one case in particular that I was working, and I did a lot of the work on this myself. I went all over the country um, capturing data from hard drives. It was a class action lawsuit against a company, and so I was working for the plaintiffs in this particular case. And we were going to all the different sites around the country and capturing this data. And there were multiple law firms that were working on this case. And so we got all the data, and I was delivering it to law firm A, law firm B. And most of these law firms were very large law firms, and they had capability in-house to review the data, but some of them were smaller and did not. So it dawned on me, okay, remember I said, like, opportunity, you got to listen to the marketplace. And I'm like, okay, what we need to be doing, instead of just handing them this raw data, we need to host it ourselves and then provide them a platform that they could come
Oh,
remotely.
excellent.
We have one copy of it, and then everybody that needs access to it. So I'm already beginning to think this way. And I think I've mentioned on a previous episode how I would go to conferences to get ideas what's going on in the industry. So this particular year, this case was at the forefront of my mind. And I go to this conference in New York, and my purpose was to find a platform that we could purchase that we could then host the data in house. And
Perfect.
number one, and it would be a convenience for our client, but most importantly, it opens up another revenue stream, another way for us to make money, another way to be sticky to the client, another solving a problem in the marketplace. So I went to this conference, but it was not something that was urgent. So I'm like, probably this year, I'm gonna make this move. It was already too late for that case, but I'm thinking before the next big case comes. So that was in January. Spring of that year, we get hit. Shouldn't say hit. We got an opportunity, and I've referenced this before. The largest case that we had ever seen, that we saw in 26 years. It was mammoth,
Wow.
huge. I'm talking millions and millions and millions of documents. So we suddenly had the opportunity. The law firm hired us, and there were law firms all over the country that were going to be accessing this data. And so this was the case that I was thinking about in January. Probably this year we're gonna get into this so I can handle these types of cases. But I wasn't thinking about starting off with a case this big.
Of course.
So the mandate came down to us. The FBI had collected a lot of the data. They had done a raid of this company. And so they were sending us the data they had. We went in to capture additional data. So it was mammoth. Bottom line is we were tasked with standing up a database from nothing. We had no
Mm.
software, we had no hardware in 1 month, less than 1 month.
Yeah.
Now, if I had been sane, I would have said, we can't do it. But thank God I was not sane. And I was licking my chops. Now I know my guys were scared to death, but I called them in, and this project was going to be a total company effort, and I needed cooperation. By that time, we had different departments doing their own little things, and we had people setting up little you know, territorial boundaries. This is my department. Don't mess with me. This is my department. Don't mess with me. And I had some egos and some
Yeah.
personalities involved. I brought all the stakeholders in. I said, guys, this is the biggest project I've ever seen, biggest project certainly this company's ever encountered. If we are going to do this, and we are going to do it, everybody has to cooperate. We all have to put our head in. We all have to work really hard at this. So I put some goals on the table. And I said, and these are people that normally didn't work well together because they're on their own little kingdoms. I said, we got to work together on this. You do
Yeah.
this, you do this, you do this, and you do this. We've got a month to get this going. And so I put some incentives on the table. I said, if you guys pull this off together, there's going to be benefit, a great reward. And I put it up there, got their attention. Now,
Yeah.
I did this not knowing how much money this was going to generate. Did not know. I estimated. Thank God I underestimated because it turned out to be much, much bigger than I'd estimated. But I'm figuring this is money that I have not made yet, but I'm making promises to these guys on what I think we can do.
So basically bonuses for the job,
Absolutely.
for the job being accomplished.
If you can stand this database, and there was a date that I had to have it, if you can stand the database up, and that meant we had to buy hardware, we had to go to certification classes for the software, we had to process the data, and then we had to load it into the system. Not a trivial thing at all. Incredible.
No.
We're talking about an industrial strength database application. I mean, I needed, maybe I'll talk about this another. I'm not even talking about the funding of it. I had to. I'll talk about the funding later. That we'll do another whole podcast on the funding. I couldn't get the bank to loan me the money. I needed money
Oh.
to invest in this, and I'll tell you what I did later about that. But that's not the purpose of this particular podcast. The purpose was to tell these guys it can be done. We're going to put every ounce of strength into this. It can be done, guys. We've got to get it done. Our neck was on the line. So everybody went to work. We sent people to training. We sent a guy out to purchase the hardware. We had another guy capturing all the data processing and all that sort of stuff. We worked night and day. The day that we had to have it up, there was a huge meeting of attorneys from all over the country and auditors from all over. And I was tasked with training them on how to use the software to review this data.
Oh, wow.
So we got the database up, but it was still not fully loaded. We were loading documents. Literally, we took shifts. I will take from 10 till 2. You come in at 2:30, take it. We were loading data around the clock. I kid not. And so I don't remember what day it was. Let's just say it was a Thursday. Thursday was when I had to go, and I had to travel. It was not in Nashville. I had to travel to do the training on the software on live data, the live data
Oh,
Thursday morning.
okay.
So Wednesday, I'm driving in my car and I have my laptop, the hotspot, and I'm monitoring. I'm not loading. I've got guys back at the office. They've been working through the night and they're still loading, and it's giving me a progress 60%, 65 or whatever. And I'm monitoring this as I'm driving the night before. I get to the hotel. I prayed. This has got to finish before 8 o'clock in the morning. And it was like
Right.
80%, whatever it was. I literally went to bed in the hotel with my laptop propped up beside me, waking up every few minutes looking to see if it finished. It had to be finished. I finally went to sleep, woke up early. Boom, it was finished. That's how
Touchdown.
close. Hey, I don't recommend running it that close, but that literally was how much we had stretched ourselves. So
Yeah.
I went into that training, had a whole slew of people out here, and they're at computers, and we're on the live system. And I'm in my mind, I'm thinking, I, I, I can't believe we did it. I cannot believe we did it. And so I went through that training. And as soon as I got through with the training, I hopped back in the car. I was driving back to Nashville, and I called my guys. I said, get everybody in the conference room. I want to talk to you. All the guys that my team
Right. We're
leaders,
involved. Yeah.
and they were nervous
Oh.
because they thought it probably bombed or something. They knew that I was
Mm-hmm.
giving that
Mm-hmm.
training, and you could hear a pin drop. I said, get everybody in the conference room. So they all got in. They had me on the speakerphone. I'm driving, and this is a little bit unlike me because I do believe in giving praise, but I don't overdo it. You know,
Okay.
I get that honest. Um, I If you get praise from me, you really really deserve it. I'm not going to give you false praise. I'm not, because I
Okay.
expect a lot. And I said, guys, a month ago when I gave you this was a tall order. I knew this was going to stretch us to the max. You could hear a pin drop. I said, but guys, you did it. I am so proud of you guys. And man, there was whooping in there. I could hear them like high fiving and stuff in the
Of
conference room.
course.
It was such a great feeling because it really did stretch it. And that was just the beginning. This case went on for almost 10 years.
Oh. Oh boy.
It was a game changer for our business. It was a game changer that really allowed us to go to market to sell the company as well, because it gave us essentially, this project became our seed round of funding. Like, we didn't have to go out and get private equity or get any
Right.
kind of funding. That became our funding for growth, which we then propelled to sell the company. But it started with my first thought: we can't. We're too small. We can't do this. We don't have the resources. I don't have the money. I don't have the equipment. I don't have the manpower.
Yeah.
But something clicked in my head. Thank God. And again, I give God the praise, because it's, as I've said many times, so many times, the intuition of, like, I just knew we have to do this. I knew, I don't know how I knew it, but I knew we this is the door that I have to walk through to get to the destiny that God had planned for me way back at the beginning. I knew it, but it wasn't going to happen automatically. I had to persuade those guys to jump in the deep end with
Right.
me,
Yeah.
and we did it.
And work 24/7 for a month.
We absolutely did.
Right. That's
Absolutely.
fabulous. That's a great story. That's also it can be done.
It
I
can
mean,
be done. So,
I like how you have the intractable problems versus the
yeah.
I guess tractable problems.
Yes, yes.
In other words, solvable. It
Yeah.
is solvable with time and money.
Time and money.
Let's let's
I've
figure
told
out what
clients
we
that
can
before.
leverage that.
They said, "Well, do you think we can do such and such?" I'm like, you know what, Mr. Lawyer, given enough time and money, I can do anything. Bring it on. Bring it on.
Right. Right.
That's the attitude I love, and I love to cultivate that in my employees. And I think that led to a lot of our success. That kind of
Yeah.
attitude, it can be done. So, Kent, don't let anybody tell you can't do it.
I won't allow that anymore. Thanks so much.